Stavros Nicolaou is a Group Senior Executive, Strategic Trade at Aspen Pharmaceuticals, and he's been attending the summit and he joins us now via Zoom. Thanks so much indeed for joining us. Always good to talk to you. You must be delighted with the announcement that we're 90% there in terms of the target set a few years ago.
Peter, firstly, thanks very much for having me again on your program. I think today is a seminal moment for the country. As you know, the President set an ambitious target of R1 trillion worth of investment, 4 years, or the inaugural conference was actually in 2018, so it is roughly 4 years ago. Very pleasing to see that we are almost close to meeting that target with a year to spare almost. So this has been achieved during a difficult time. I don't have to explain to anyone, any viewer, that the COVID impact on global economies and our economy has been significant. So to get to 90% of this target is a very commendable performance for the country.
Often when we talk about investments, we look outside and hoping that a lot of organizations will come in from outside the country. But South African companies have come to the party as well.
Peter, look, it's been a mix of both South African and foreign direct investment. Of course, very difficult to work out exactly what the mix of foreign to domestic investment is. But of course, you want the right balance between the two. But what was very important for me today was when the President opened the conference, there was a mention that there were delegates from over 40 countries around the world. So when you're having an international investor conference, as we are here, you do want a strong international and global representation, because you want those people to come to South Africa, have a good experience, and then take back an investment message for and on behalf of the country to whatever geography they're traveling back to, so that we can in turn convert that into foreign direct investment.
You understand investing and are growing a business beyond borders. I just wonder, what is it, do you think, that we've been able to do right that is attracting this investment? Because, as you say, we set an ambitious one, and it seems that the message has gotten out and people are taking up these opportunities.
Peter, look, as I said earlier, it's a commendable performance, but we obviously need to do a lot more as a country. Of course, we know that. But confidence breeds confidence. When you start approaching, and the number of 1 to 1.2 trillion, the reason there's a difference is there's been an exchange rate variance that one needs to take into account. But it's certainly no slouch attracting R1 trillion worth of investment. But to answer your question directly, the important thing to take out of this is, yes, foreign direct investors are looking at South Africa and saying we've got good infrastructure, good banking and financial services sector. We've got very good talent and some good skills as well in many different sectors of the economy. We also are well endowed with resources, and of course, we are starting to see new sectors like the pharmaceutical sector emerging in our country. Previously, we were an economy that was largely driven by the mining and commodity sector. So it's really interesting to see how some of the investments that were announced, including the Aspen investment, begins to diversify the economy further. There's a strong interest in manufacturing, and that's what we need. We need manufacturing jobs in the country, because those give you both up and downstream economic activity. They add backward and forward linkages and value chains into the economy, which is a good multiplier effect that you would seek in any investment.
All right, so what would you say then has been the biggest takeaway for you, the most important message that's come through this conference?
The most important message for me is that, and this might sound cliche, right, that South Africa is well on its way to implementing an economic reconstruction and recovery plan. We know the devastation on both lives and livelihoods that we've experienced in the last 25 months. And, when I look at what economists were predicting, they would say it would take 5 or 6 years to return back to, pre-COVID economic levels and activity. I think today is a demonstration that we are probably getting there a lot quicker and sooner than many people were predicting. So biggest message for me is the economic reconstruction and recovery plan is in motion and is gaining momentum.
All right. At the beginning, you said that, look, there's no hiding from the fact that a lot still needs to be done. What do you think we need to do quickly, perhaps low-hanging fruit that can help us on this journey even faster?
Unquestionably, like most emerging markets, we have challenges in South Africa. We know the power challenge, for example, and many other challenges. I think areas of focus, and I don't want to call them focus, I think we often don't give ourselves enough credit as a country for what we actually do and what we achieve. So areas of enhancement for me, I think the president and his team need to continue accelerating the structural reform in the economy. We need to continue, of course, implementing. We've got very good policies in the country, but we've been found wanting on implementing. So that would be a second area. And then thirdly, I think we need to continue being committed to building a capable state so that, the various departments that are going to implement economic recovery are able to implement on a capacitated basis and they've got the right skill set to do so.
Yeah, a capable state. And I was listening to a number of the conversations during the day, and a theme that was coming through quite strongly was the need for public-private partnerships to succeed and for them to be set up in a way that create the kind of structure, environment, all of that we need. Is that something that you resonate with? Because I know that this is something that's been important to you as your organization.
Peter, I couldn't hear all of your question, but I think it refers to infrastructure, right? Sorry, there's a bit of a background noise. I'm still at the conference, and there's a banquet in motion.
Yes, and public-private partnerships, how important are they?
Critically important, Peter. And I think we saw the value and benefit of public-private partnerships during the pandemic. We saw in healthcare, where the space that I'm in, we saw the private and public sector joining forces, making their capacities available. And that is why we had such an efficient vaccine rollout program in our country. Now, we didn't meet our target of 70% because there's a strong anti-vax movement, but that doesn't derive from the fact that putting our public and private sector capacities collectively was immensely and enormously successful and achieved the result that we all desired to achieve, which is to have, for example, public sector patients being vaccinated in the private sector and vice versa. That's never happened. So that shows that if there's a collective will, a common goal, how these private-public partnerships can be so effective, not only in growing the economy, but also solving public health problems, as was the case.
All right, and perhaps finally, I see that the African Development Bank is putting in 42 billion rand into South Africa. Above and beyond that, how important is it to see more Africans investing in Africa? Is this something that we're seeing more and more of? Because I guess we have to start looking at ourselves as a continent.
Peter, you're quite right. I think that, they say charity starts at home. And I think what has been complementary to the African Free Trade Agreement, and of course, there's been a lot said about the African Free Trade Agreement. It looks for the first time to start aggregating African volumes so that businesses around the continent can leverage on those aggregated volumes. So what's been rather telling for me today has been that we are seeing strong African representation. And I think the message that we've got to open up to African markets, aggregate volumes on the market is a common thematic that I've noticed at this particular conference, which maybe didn't come through as strongly 4 years ago in the inaugural conference.
Stavros Nicolaou, we're going to leave it there. You can go back. I hope there's still some food left for you at the banquet. Thanks so much
Peter,
indeed.
thanks very much. I'm not sharing my dinner. Thank you.
Take care, my brother. Good talking to you.
Cheers. All the best. Bye-bye.
All right. That's Stavros Nicolaou, who's a senior executive at Aspen Pharmaceuticals, who's done a lot of work in terms of particularly during the pandemic, finding ways to localize our manufacturing of vaccines and developing pharmaceuticals across the continent. So that's Stavros there speaking to us, and it's been pretty good news at this year's investment conference.